The worst could be just around the corner.
I will continue looking for her.
Morning, this house was found empty. The three women were gone, vanished, without a trace.
Stacy, Susie, Cheryl, we want you to know we're all still looking for you. Your families and all your friends won't give up until you're found.
June 7th, 1993 would become an infamous day for the residents of Springfield, Missouri, as the disappearance of three women shocked the town to its core. The mysterious situation surrounding the disappearances captivated the media around the United States. News outlets and reporters dubbed them the Springfield Three. Susie Streeter, aged 19, and Stacy McCall, aged 18, had just graduated from Kickapoo High School. With their whole lives seemingly ahead of them, the two young girls dreamed of attending college together and partying all summer, going on road trips, as well as taking in the sights around the state. After attending their graduation ceremony, the two girls and a friend named Janelle Kirby went out to a party to celebrate the beginning of summer with friends. Stacy and Susie originally had planned to stay the night in a motel just outside of Springfield in order to get an early start on the trip to Branson the next morning to visit a water park. The two girls later changed plans and decided to go to Susie's mother's house to spend the night. The last known sighting of Susie and Stacy happened around 2 a.m. as they left a party and headed home in their cars. Susie's mother, Cheryl Levitt, was a 47-year-old hairdresser and mother of two. Recently divorced, she had just bought her dream house not long ago and had settled in with Susie as she was finishing high school. The night of June 6th, Cheryl had stayed in, working on reupholstering a piece of furniture, and last chatted with a friend about it before presumably going to bed just after 11 p.m. At some point before dawn, the girls returned home, though Susie Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Cheryl Levitt would never be seen again.
Friends and family of 19-year-old Suzanne Streeter and 18-year-old Stacy McCall say it's not like them to just leave and not tell anyone where they're going.
She calls and lets me know where she's going to be. She's never missed work. She's a very conscientious young woman.
We're questioning everybody at this time, friends, relatives, anyone that has the information, anyone that may have seen them last, neighbors. We've done neighborhood canvas. We're just checking every lead we can at this time.
The last time anyone saw Susan Streeter or Stacy McCall was over the weekend at this house in Battlefield. The girls had gathered here with some friends after graduating from Kickapoo High School on Saturday. They left here early Sunday morning.
They said they were going to the other girl's house and they were going to be spending the night there, and they called me in the morning so we could go to Whitewater. And they never called me in the morning, so I called them, and I called and I called and called, and I got no answer. So I went over there, and they weren't there.
This is Suzanne Streeter's mom, Cheryl Levitt. She's also missing. Last seen at her daughter's graduation ceremony at Hammond Student Center on Saturday. She lived in this house on East Delmar in Springfield. That's where police found the three missing women's cars. Authorities say there was no sign of a struggle. In fact, the front door was unlocked, the TV was on, their clothes were still there, their purses and personal items untouched.
Her jewelry and things were left in her purse. Her makeup is there. An 18-year-old girl that's very proud about the way she looks, wears her makeup and looks nice, and she doesn't go out just wearing a t-shirt and her underpants.
Springfield police have notified law enforcement agencies in the surrounding area and in neighboring states, hoping someone will have an idea of what happened to these three women over the weekend.
The morning of June 7th, Susie and Stacy's friend Janelle, whom the girls were planning to attend the water park in Branson with, called Susie's mother's home phone to see if the girls were up and ready to go. Getting no answer and trying back a little later to no avail, Janelle and her boyfriend Mike decided to make their way to Susie's house. Arriving at the house, they found that Susie, Stacy, and Cheryl's car were all parked at the residence. Coming closer to the front door, the pair observed that the glass covering the porch light lay broken in pieces on the porch. While Mike cleaned up the mess, Janelle entered the house to see if the girls were still sleeping. She found nobody home. Susie and Cheryl's bed appeared to have been slept in. In the bathroom, there was evidence the girls had removed their makeup and taken off the jewelry the pair had been seen wearing at the events the previous day. Cheryl's dog Cinnamon, a small terrier, had been left alone and seemed to be panicked and on edge. According to statements, that was abnormal for the usually calm canine. As Janelle prepared to leave, she noticed that Susie and Cheryl's cigarettes and lighters had been left behind. That was really unusual for the two women who smoked more often than not, and they wouldn't leave these items behind. Just as Janelle and Mike were readying to leave, the phone suddenly rang. Janelle answered it and found a man's voice on the other end making crude sexual remarks. The man hung up without identifying himself, but called back again a short while later, making more sexual remarks before again hanging up without identifying himself. Janelle and Mike head home, unsure of what to make of the situation. Later in the day on June 7th, after not hearing from her daughter Stacy all day, Janice McCall heads over to Susie's house to see where the girls are. She arrives to the same troubling scene Janelle and Mike were witness to earlier. Janice entered the house and found that the three women's purses had been left behind and that the TV had been left on a channel that only showed static. It has been over 15 hours now since anyone has made contact with any of the three women. Janice McCall calls the police and files a missing persons report with Springfield PD. After the initial investigation into Cheryl Levitt's abandoned house and the whereabouts of the three missing women, the police summarized that as many as 20 people had come and gone from the Levitt residence, inadvertently tampering with evidence and even erasing an unknown message on the home answering machine. The following day, Janice McCall made up a missing persons poster with a picture of the three missing women. Spreading them around town, the story of the disappearance quickly gains the attention of media outlets around the state and country. The police investigated the house for potential clues. There was no obvious signs of any struggle. The tip lines set up to help investigators were flooded in the coming weeks with possible sightings, and even a woman came forward and claimed to have seen Susie Streeter driving an unknown van down her street and then turning around in her driveway with an unknown male in the vehicle, unseen by the witness. It is reported that she heard the man's voice say, "Don't do anything stupid," before watching the van drive off. Many tips of this unknown van came into the investigators, but they all turned out to be dead ends.
Each of these sheets represents a citizen call to the police department. These calls came in just today. Each sheet contains information that the caller hoped would help police find Cheryl Levitt and Suzanne Street and Stacy McCall. Each call has to be checked out. Some take more manpower and more time than others.
We had a phone call overnight from a hang-up caller that indicated that the ladies could be found along Pearson Creek. This morning we took 14 officers and have physically walked the Pearson Creek area from Jones Spring to where Pearson Creek empties into the James River and found nothing of substance in relations to this case.
Police have decided that a car stolen from a neighbor of one of the missing women is probably unrelated to the suspected abduction. Investigators also find no similarities between this case and one in Oklahoma. An Oklahoma woman, her daughter, and a sister-in-law have been missing since May 29th, but police say there are few, if any, similarities. Also discounted are any connections with other apparent abductions in Missouri. Additional photos of the Springfield women were released today. And this recently discovered video of Stacy McCall, modeling for a television commercial. Police hope public interest in the case will help them find the women soon.
I feel the public is cooperating generously.
The first suspect on the police radar was Susie's older brother Bart. Bart had left home at 17 after clashing with his mother Cheryl over the rules of the house. Bart remained estranged from his mother after moving out, though he still had a relationship with his sister Susie. Susie had moved in with her brother briefly, but eventually returned to live with her mother after having a fight with Bart over his demeanor and lack of sobriety. According to reports, Bart had a strong alibi for the night of the disappearance and showed a strong willingness to help investigators, cooperating with authorities throughout the entire investigation. Investigators then turned their attention to Susie's ex-boyfriend Dustin. Dustin and a friend named Michael Clay had recently been charged with vandalizing a mausoleum and putting human skulls in nearby trees. They were caught when a pawn shop alerted authorities that the boys were trying to sell gold fillings removed from the skulls. Police attended Michael Clay's house and found occult paraphernalia, books and animal skulls that did raise some eyebrows. The next day when police returned to do another search, the items had been removed and were never located. During questioning, Michael Clay expressed that the three women were probably dead. However, with zero evidence connecting the boys to the house, they too were ruled out as suspects. Perhaps the most interesting person the police investigated was Robert Craig Cox. After a tip was given to the Springfield police about Mr. Cox from the brother of a woman named Sharon Zellers. Sharon Zellers was abducted and brutally murdered by Robert Cox in 1978, shortly after becoming an Army Ranger. In early 1992, Robert Cox was paroled and went to live with his parents in his hometown, Springfield, Missouri. Perhaps coincidentally, Robert Cox got a job as a mechanic at the same place where Stacy's father worked as a car salesman. Stacy often brought her father lunch there and was said to be the type of girl who attracted attention from men of all ages. Shortly after leaving work as a mechanic, Mr. Cox got work as an underground utilities worker, a job many speculated could have helped him gain entry to the Levitt residence without causing alarm. Police investigated Mr. Cox, but his girlfriend at the time gave him an alibi and said that they had attended church in the morning. In 1997, Robert Cox was imprisoned in Texas for his connection to a Florida kidnapping and murder. When questioned by reporters about the Springfield Three, he told journalists he knew that the three women were dead and buried in the Springfield area and that their bodies would never be recovered. Robert Cox's girlfriend at the time later recanted her statement, giving Robert an alibi the night and morning of the Springfield Three's disappearance, but was later given one by his parents. Despite the troubling statements made by Robert Cox, nothing was ever found to tie him to the woman's disappearance. Over the years, tips have poured in mostly from psychics, through which have only served to muddy the waters that surrounded the disappearance. One reoccurring theme between many of the tips have raised eyebrows from many people surrounding the case. It is believed that the three women were buried before the completion of the south parking garage at Springfield Cox Hospital. In 2007, 15 years after the three women were reported missing, crime reporter Kathy Baird asked Rick Norland, a self-reported mechanical engineer, to take a look at the south parking garage. A supposed expert in the ground-penetrating radar, Norland said that he had found 3 anomalies when looking at the hospital's south parking garage. Norland claimed that the 3 anomalies looked similar to burial sites, but his evidence and testimony were not seen to be credible or conclusive enough to disturb the structure by Springfield PD. With claims of shady police work from people who surround the case, the complications of supposed psychic tips, and the tampering of evidence at the Levitt home in the initial days of the investigation, the hunt for the missing women has seen its share of hurdles. Every promising lead led to a dead end, and the lack of physical evidence and bodies have prevented the families of these 3 women from ever getting any closure on the fate of their missing loved ones. The Springfield Three have not been found to this day, but perhaps most interesting is the statement Robert Cox made to investigators despite no evidence linking him to the disappearances. He claimed he would reveal the location of the woman, but only after his mother had died. Whether he has anything true to reveal remains unknown, as Robert Cox continues to be the most important person of interest in the disappearance of the Springfield Three. This case remains cold.